It was a night like any other. The moon hung high, casting a pale light over the streets. But for one girl, everything was about to change. Meet Ashley, the rich, carefree daughter of one of the city's wealthiest families. She had everything: money, status, the best of everything. But with that came a sense of entitlement, a belief that the world existed just to cater to her whims. And tonight, her reckless decisions would prove just how far that sense of privilege could take her. Ashley had just come from an exclusive party, the kind where champagne flowed freely and the music never stopped. The night had been full of laughter, flirtation, and the kind of fun that only the ultra-wealthy seem to understand. But somewhere between her last glass of wine and getting into her luxury sports car, Ashley lost track of what really mattered. As she slid behind the wheel, her vision blurred, and a thrill of excitement surged through her veins. Just one last joyride before the night ended. She wasn't thinking of the consequences. She wasn't thinking at all. As she sped down the road, the world outside became a blur. Her hand gripped the steering wheel tightly, her foot pressing harder on the gas pedal, pushing the car faster and faster. The engine roared like a beast hungry for the thrill of the chase. In the distance, a figure appeared, an old man, hunched and slow, making his way across the street. But Ashley didn't slow down. No, she didn't see him. She didn't even try to. She was lost in her world, too high on the rush of speed and the intoxication in her blood. The crash was deafening, the screech of tires, the sickening sound of metal on metal, the shattering of glass. Ashley's body jolted forward, her seatbelt snapping her back, but she didn't feel the pain immediately. Her head was spinning, the reality of what had just happened slowly sinking in. But then, through the haze, she saw him. The old man lay sprawled out on the ground, his frail body barely moving, and panic gripped her heart. For a split second, Ashley considered getting out, checking on him, apologizing, something, anything to show she had a shred of humanity. But then, a thought crossed her mind. What if she got into trouble? What if this cost her reputation? The scene unfolding before her could ruin everything. So, instead of stepping out to help, she did something she would regret for the rest of her life. In a state of shock, she grabbed her phone, dialing her lawyer's number. She needed to fix this. She needed to make sure that no one would find out about what happened. And so, when the old man regained consciousness and tried to stand, his pain was more than just physical. It was a price he would soon have to pay. Unknowingly, the man found himself caught in a web of lies, manipulated into a situation that would strip him of his dignity. Ashley's family lawyer arrived within moments, swooping in to handle the mess she had made. It was then that the real plan came into play. Instead of offering a hand of help, instead of doing the right thing, they orchestrated a scheme that would have anyone in their right mind questioning their morals. The old man, whose only mistake was crossing the street at the wrong time, was suddenly dragged into a web of legal complications. They blamed him for the accident. They twisted the truth. They made sure that he would be held responsible for the repairs. How could a poor, elderly man with no resources possibly fight back? He didn't have the money, the power, or the connections to stand up against someone like Ashley and her family. And just like that, the world saw what looked like a simple car accident. But beneath the surface, it was something far more sinister. A rich girl playing with her privilege, forcing an innocent man to pay the price. But the twist didn't end there. The old man, despite his meekness, wasn't going to let this go. He knew something was off. Something felt wrong about the way things were unfolding. And as his struggle began, an unlikely alliance started to form. One person who would stop at nothing to uncover the truth. No matter how dangerous or complicated the path would be, what Ashley didn't know was that there were eyes watching, waiting for the right moment to reveal everything. The old man wasn't just a victim. He had a past, a story of his own, and he wasn't about to let the rich girl get away with her mistake without facing the consequences. But what was Ashley going to do when the truth came crashing down? Would she learn from her actions, or would her privilege continue to protect her? The stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything. The game was on. But who would come out victorious? The weeks following the accident were a blur for Ashley. She tried to pretend like everything was normal. Her life, as it always had been, filled with luxury and privilege. But behind the pristine facade of her world, something was beginning to unravel. The old man, whose name was Mr. Thompson, was more than just a victim in her eyes. He was a problem, one she had to deal with quickly, before his story could reach anyone who mattered. The truth was, Ashley had never had to face the consequences of her actions before. She was used to getting away with everything, from skipped classes to broken rules, all because of her family's wealth. And now, this accident, this mess she had created, was threatening everything she had ever known. Her status, her friends, her reputation. It was all at risk. Her family, especially her father, had a reputation for fixing things. Anything that threatened their name could be buried, erased, or smoothed over with enough money and influence. Ashley had been raised to believe that money could buy anything, even silence. But as the days passed, and the weight of her actions settled deeper into her conscience, she began to realize that this wasn't like anything she had ever experienced before. This wasn't just a matter of paying off someone to forget. This was a man's life, his dignity, his future, hanging in the balance. And yet, she couldn't seem to shake the nagging feeling that she had made a mistake. She couldn't fix with her usual methods. Mr. Thompson, on the other hand, wasn't so easily silenced. After being hit by the car, he spent several days in the hospital, his body battered, bruised, and broken. But his spirit, oddly enough, remained uncrushed. At first, he had been confused, disoriented, unsure of what had really happened. But as his memory cleared, so did his anger. He had no intention of letting this go. He didn't have Ashley's wealth or connections, but he had something just as valuable, a lifetime of experience and a deep sense of justice. The old man had once been a lawyer in his younger years. He had fought in the courts for justice, for the rights of the poor, and for those who had no voice. He had seen corruption up close, and he knew exactly how to navigate the system to expose the truth. After years of hardship, he had retired, choosing a quiet life, far away from the complexities of the world. But now, after being struck by a car driven by a rich, careless girl, he found himself drawn back into a battle he never thought he would face again. Mr. Thompson was determined to make Ashley pay, not with money, but with the truth. He didn't care about her wealth or her family's power. What mattered to him was holding her accountable for what she had done. He began researching, gathering evidence, and speaking to witnesses who had been nearby during the crash. Little by little, he started to piece together a picture that was far different from the one Ashley's family had painted. But as Mr. Thompson's investigation continued, he realized that he wasn't just up against Ashley. No, he was up against a system that was rigged in her favor. Ashley's family had deep ties to the local authorities, and when the police report was filed, it was clear they had already put their spin on the accident. They claimed that Mr. Thompson had been at fault for crossing the street without looking, despite the fact that multiple witnesses had confirmed that Ashley was the one speeding. It was clear to Mr. Thompson that he was up against more than just a rich girl. He was up against an entire network of corruption. Ashley, meanwhile, was starting to feel the pressure. She had never been one to care about other people's opinions. But now, it seemed like every move she made was being watched. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. Her lawyer had reassured her that they could handle it, that her family's influence would be enough to make the entire incident disappear. But deep down, Ashley wasn't so sure anymore. The guilt had started to eat away at her, and the thought of what she had done to Mr. Thompson, the pain she had caused, haunted her every waking moment. One evening, as she was scrolling through social media, Ashley stumbled across a post. It was a video, filmed by one of the witnesses at the scene of the accident. It was grainy and blurry, but there was no mistaking what it showed. The footage clearly showed her speeding down the road, her car swerving dangerously as she approached the crosswalk. And then, right before the crash, it showed Mr. Thompson stumbling into the street, clearly not at fault. The video had already gone viral. People were talking about it online, sharing it, commenting on it, and suddenly, Ashley's world began to fall apart. The video had become proof of her recklessness, a damning piece of evidence that her family's influence couldn't erase. People were starting to ask questions. The pressure was mounting. Ashley's lawyer advised her to stay silent, to let the dust settle, and trust that the scandal would blow over. But the damage was done. The video had gone too far, and too many people now knew the truth. The old man's quiet resolve was beginning to turn into something bigger, and soon, Ashley realized that she couldn't escape the consequences of her actions. No amount of money could save her now. And then, the unexpected happened. Mr. Thompson filed a lawsuit. Not only was he demanding that Ashley pay for the repairs to his damaged body and life, but he was also suing her for defamation, for trying to pin the blame on him. The courtroom was set to be a battle of epic proportions, with everything on the line. Ashley would have to face her past mistakes and face the man she had wronged in front of the world. Would she finally take responsibility for what she had done? Or would she fight tooth and nail to protect the life she had built? The countdown to the trial had begun, and with every passing day, the tension in the air grew thicker. What would happen when the truth came to light? And who would come out victorious in this clash of the privileged versus the wronged? The story was far from over, and Ashley's world was about to be turned upside down in ways she never imagined. The courtroom drama was set. The case had captured the attention of the media, and the buzz was palpable. Ashley's world, once a gilded bubble, was now under scrutiny. People who had once admired her wealth and status now looked at her with suspicion, even disdain. The video of the crash had gone viral, and the social media commentary was relentless. Some people even started to call her the spoiled rich girl who thought she could get away with anything. It wasn't just about the accident anymore. It was about her entire lifestyle, the entitlement, and the careless disregard for those less fortunate. As the day of the trial approached, Ashley felt the weight of everything bearing down on her. The glamorous life she had once lived, the endless parties, the expensive shopping sprees, all of it seemed so far away now. Her friends, the ones who had always surrounded her because of her money, were suddenly quiet, avoiding her calls. It was clear that her reputation was in tatters. She couldn't hide from the truth anymore. And for the first time, she was forced to confront the person she had become. On the morning of the trial, Ashley arrived at the courthouse, her heart racing. Her lawyer reassured her that they had a solid case, that the judge would see things in her favor, and that it would all be over soon. But Ashley wasn't so sure anymore. The sight of Mr. Thompson, the old man, standing strong in the courtroom, made her stomach turn. He wasn't just fighting for money, he was fighting for dignity, for the truth. And in that moment, Ashley realized that the case wasn't just about her actions. It was about a much larger issue of fairness, responsibility, and justice. The trial began, and it was nothing like Ashley had imagined. Mr. Thompson, despite his frail appearance, was sharp and unwavering. He presented evidence, witnessed testimonies, and even uncovered new details about the way Ashley's family had tried to cover up the incident. The atmosphere in the courtroom grew tense as Ashley's lawyer attempted to shift blame. But Mr. Thompson's calm demeanor and relentless pursuit of justice had a magnetic effect on the jury. As the final arguments were presented, Ashley sat there, stunned. For the first time, she truly saw how out of touch she had been with the real world. Her entire life had been a series of privileges, and she had never once considered the lives of those less fortunate than her. Now, it seemed like the entire courtroom was watching her, waiting to see if she would take responsibility for her actions, or try to manipulate her way out of it. And then, in a moment that caught everyone by surprise, Ashley did something no one expected. She stood up and walked toward Mr. Thompson, her heart pounding. Her lawyer was visibly shocked, as were the others in the room. The eyes of the jury followed her every step. She reached Mr. Thompson and, without saying a word, handed him a letter. It was an apology, a real one, not the hollow scripted ones she had practiced before. The courtroom fell silent as Mr. Thompson unfolded the letter. He read it quietly, his eyes scanning the words, then looked up at Ashley. For a moment, there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, as if he saw not just the privileged young woman who had hurt him, but a person who for the first time was willing to face the consequences of her actions. "I'm sorry," Ashley said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been so selfish, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to make it right." The room was stunned into silence. Ashley's admission of guilt, something so rare for someone in her position, had shifted the entire dynamic of the trial. It wasn't just the letter that surprised everyone. It was her willingness to face the truth. As the trial continued, the judge took Ashley's actions into account. It wasn't just about the crash anymore. It was about her transformation, her willingness to take responsibility and make amends. In the end, the judge ruled that Ashley would pay for the damages to Mr. Thompson's car and medical bills. But more importantly, he ordered her to participate in community service, working alongside those who had no voice, who lived in the shadows of society. It was a punishment that was less about the law and more about her growth as a person. Ashley's world was never the same after the trial. She didn't go back to her lavish lifestyle right away. Instead, she spent months volunteering in the community, helping the elderly, and working with those who had suffered from the very system that had once favored her. She learned what it meant to truly give back, to acknowledge her privilege, and to use her resources for something greater than herself. It was a humbling experience, one that forced her to confront her past mistakes and find a way to make things right. As for Mr. Thompson, his life slowly returned to normal. The accident had been a turning point for him too, not just because of the money, but because of the way it had allowed him to rediscover his own sense of justice. He didn't need the money, but what he needed was to know that someone who had wronged him would understand the true weight of their actions. In the end, both Ashley and Mr. Thompson had found something important through their ordeal. Ashley had learned that money and status couldn't shield her from accountability, and Mr. Thompson had found redemption in knowing that justice, no matter how delayed, had been served. The story wasn't just about a rich girl crashing her car. It was about learning from our mistakes, taking responsibility for our actions, and finding the courage to change. As the story came to a close, it left the audience with a lingering thought. How often do we ignore the consequences of our actions because we think we can get away with it? And what happens when we finally face the truth? For Ashley, it was a painful but necessary journey, one that transformed her life in ways she never expected. And for Mr. Thompson, it was a reminder that even the most unlikely people can change the world, one small step at a time.